Stop the violence. This is the theme of the Universal Children's Day 2013, on the 20th of November. UNICEF works to realize the rights of every child, and the European Union is one of its top donors, supporting health, education and social protection, combating discrimination, child labour and human trafficking. The first priority now for the EU-UNICEF cooperation is to prevent the birth of a lost generation in Syria. With more than 1 million children already displaced outside their country, far from their home and traumatized by the conflict, UNICEF is trying to focus humanitarian efforts on education and protection, along with water and nutrition. The European Union is the biggest donor for UNICEF operations in Syria, Jordan, Lebanon and Turkey. Thanks to the EU funds, 2.5 million children in the region will be given a chance to receive education, also meaning some sense of normality and security.
When I visited the camp in Zaatari, where we have thousands of children following schools, where UNICEF and the EU partner to have this and in place, and I was asking girls at school, what is your main priority? The first thing they all said, we want to go to school. You know, don't forget Syria was a country where children were going to school and had understood the value of being, at school and learning. So that's something we have to address, which is very positive, which brings hope, which builds capacity, which brings, employability for these children in this difficult context.
The support of the European Union is going to refugees, but also to the hosting communities. The most worrying situation is in Lebanon, which hosts 800,000 refugees. Jordan is also under pressure, with 500,000 refugees living in the Zaatari camp, the third largest city of the country.
Places where minority children are at very high risk, and in situations like this, I feel we in Europe have done a great public service to fund UNICEF, but it is UNICEF staff that has come up with tremendously important activities.
However, many challenges remain in other southern countries, such as Libya or in Egypt, and in the Eastern neighbouring countries, where EU and UNICEF are working to provide quality education for all children.
As UNICEF, we have to continue to bring the attention of partners, of government, around the most vulnerable. I mean, you could, for instance, in Egypt, on female genital mutilation, here you have a high prevalence among girls between the age of 15 to 17 in terms of female genital mutilation and cutting. It's really something we don't agree with as UNICEF. So we have to, for instance, not criminalize these aspects, because of course it's against the law, but try to be a bit more constructive in the way you change the social norm which has been established around this practice.
Amongst the Eastern partners of the EU, one issue is the vast number of children still being in institutions, and UNICEF is working on having them live among communities and families. There are also street children.
In many of these countries, unfortunately, we work in Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Belarus, where we have programs in these areas, children in conflict with law, where you have, issues around justice, to make sure that, punishment is not disproportionate, to make sure that there is no abuse or torture of children in jails when they are, in conflict with the law.
In these difficult situations, when not full-blown crisis, the commitment of EU and UNICEF aims to assist in particular the most vulnerable children, the disabled, children from ethnic minorities and the poorest ones.